What's going on, everyone? Welcome to this session titled, Are They on the Train? Increasing Student Achievement Through Relational Teaching. My name is JT Taylor, and I will be presenting for you today. I am the CEO of Purpose Pushers LLC. I'm a full-time educational consultant, over 13 years of experience in the K through 12 setting. I'm formerly a special education teacher of students with disabilities, students with emotional disabilities, and formerly a Title I instructional coach. But I don't want to bore you with too much about me. If you're interested in learning about the work I'm engaged in, please visit my website at purposepushers.com. But let's get into this session. Are they on the train? Here are a few objectives that I want to make sure we cover. I want you to gain a concrete definition of relational teaching and its characteristics. I also want you to be able to identify the impact of the rapport building process in terms of student behavior, student motivation, as well as student achievement. And lastly, I want to make sure that you leave this session with at least 5 practical strategies for using this SEL pedagogical approach that I refer to as relational teaching. So, what is relational teaching? Hopefully you have a pencil, pen, some type of technological gadget where you can take your notes. But I want you to understand that relational teaching is much more than a strategy. It's an educational philosophy for meeting the unique needs of all students by creating an atmosphere of love in the learning environment where every child feels capable, connected, and cared for. Can you imagine how powerful it would be for an atmosphere of love to be created right in your classroom where every student can affirm that I feel capable, I feel connected, and I feel cared for in this space? That's the goal of relational teaching. Is rooted in research. I mean, adolescent psychology, motivational theory, social emotional learning, educational research, and practical experience in K through 12 educational. So everyone who has been a teacher for a while, they understand what relational teaching is, even if they don't quite call it relational teaching. But you know how powerful it is to build rapport with students. I want to give you 3 components of relational teaching. These components are analogous for the things that we must do in the field of education. The number 1 component I want to talk about is the train. See, the train refers simply to the vehicle that is used to move students from where they are currently to where we would have them to be. This means, how are you going to move students academically from where they are right now to where you would have them to be? How are you going to get them from point A to point B? You're going to need the train. The train is how we move students, and the train is an analogy for relationships. If there is no train or if there are no relationship, there will be very little movement. Secondly, we got to talk about the tracks, because while it is extremely important to build rapport, you got to make sure that the tracks are properly aligned. You got to make sure that the train is heading in the correct direction. Now we're talking about curriculum, instruction, and assessment. I always liken relationships and curriculum, instruction, and assessment to 2 wings on the same bird. See, the bird needs both wings to fly. If you only have curriculum, instruction, and assessment, then you're not going anywhere. And if you only have rapport and relationships, you're not going anywhere. You need the train and the tracks in order to move students from where they are currently to where you would have them to be. And then the last component, the very most important component, is the conductor. Obviously, the conductor is the educator or the leader who is responsible for making sure that the passengers board the train in a timely manner and arrive at their expected destination in a timely manner. We're all familiar with that popular phrase of the conductor. He says, "All aboard." And what he is saying is, everybody has to come on board. I'm not going to leave until everyone's on board. Once I make this call, I'm ensuring that no passenger is left behind. This is what it means to be a relational teacher. You understand the train, you understand the tracks, and you understand the role of the conductor. Now, I got to hit you with a pop quiz. I mean, think about it. What kind of pedagogy would I be proposing if I didn't talk about assessments? If I didn't give you an opportunity to model what it means to be engaged in an assessment? So here's a quick pop quiz. I need you to jot this question down. How are passengers impacted when there is no train? How are passengers impacted when there is no train? And of course, you remember that the train refers to relationships. It's the vehicle that makes transportation possible. I'm going to give you a quick 20 seconds to answer this question. Then we're going to move along because you know this is a virtual PD and we got to keep moving. How are passengers impacted when there is no train? I want to hear from you. 9 seconds left. All right, stop right there. Now that you have gotten that clarified and answered, let's move on. Number 2, pop quiz. Why is it important for the conductor to properly lay the tracks? Why is it important for the conductor to properly manage and handle curriculum, instruction, and assessments? 20 seconds. I want to hear from you. Be creative. 20 seconds. Haters will reappear, but ignore the negativity. Don't lend them your ear. Every day I wake up, man, it's a blessing. The world's still crazy, but I'm not stressing. It's gonna be a good day. All right, you got 5 seconds left. We gotta move. I'm sorry that I'm moving in expedited fashion, but we gotta move. All right, time. Hopefully you have written the question down, so even if you don't have time to answer right now, you got time. It's virtual, so answer it. All right, and here we are, the last question. What happens to the conductor when he or she neglects the train and the tracks? You got 20 seconds. What happens to the conductor who neglects the train and the tracks? Purpose is my mission, vision to see beyond the surface. Hottest teacher rapping on the earth is. You got about 7 seconds to inspire generation, free from incarceration, no procrastination, steady dream chasing. I'ma keep. All right, everyone. Now we got to move along. Okay, now what do we need to do to get students on the train, heading in the right direction, and successfully arriving at the intended destination? Let's jot down some things. What do we need to do? I'll tell you what I think. Every educator must practice relational teaching. But why? That's the question. Why should we all practice relational teaching? It's because the research shows us that relational teaching, building relationships and rapport with students, is the key to classroom management. Every educator across the nation has had their duels. They've had their battles with classroom management, or as someone like to call it, classroom culture. Well, here's what the research says. Children are more likely to be respectful when important adults in their lives respect them. They're more likely to care about others if they know they are cared for. So we got to care for kids. We got to make sure that we are explicit in our communication of the fact that we care about students and that we believe in them. Marzano asserts that students will resist rules and procedures along with any consequent disciplinary actions if the foundation of a good relationship is lacking. Now, listen, if you've been teaching for a while, you know this is the truth. How often have we seen, students have tantrums and lay on the floor or cry and whine, knowing that we're still going to contact their parents, knowing that we may have to remove them from the setting, but they don't care. You know why? Because a good relationship may be lacking from the student's perspective. Now, we may say we care, but does the student perceive us as caring in that moment? This is the key to classroom management. Secondly, building relationships is the key to student motivation. Listen, the research affirms that students are more motivated by teachers whom they perceive as caring. If you want to motivate students, show them how much you care about them. If you want to inspire students, build relationships with them, because again, relationships are the train that allows us to move in the direction. Research also states that teachers who are most effective at diagnosing and improving student motivation, they tend to focus on interpersonal dealings with students. They link education with things students value, and they encourage autonomy more than control in the classroom. So that means you're inviting students in and allowing students to play a role in how we're going to manage the classroom. In other words, you're creating a democratic atmosphere where students can own the classroom. We're empowering agency. We're allowing students to have voice in how the classroom is going to be run. And of course, I want to go back to this point about linking education with things students value. Now we're talking about culturally responsive teaching. This is key. How can you be responsive to a culture that you don't know? You got to build relationships. When you do that, you're going to motivate students. The research validates it. So not only is it the key to behavior, to improving behavior, but it's also the key to motivation. And thirdly, it is the key to academic achievement. The ability of teachers to forge relationships, specifically with children in poverty, and connect with them is the key factor in high-performing schools. You know, we do know that there are blue ribbon Title I schools, that there are very successful schools that serve students who are considered to be underprivileged, who are considered to come from low socioeconomic backgrounds. But these students can strive to the highest level. Poverty is not a disability. These students can be motivated. These students can achieve at the highest level, but they won't do it without a relationship with their teachers. Listen, the quality of a student-teacher relationship happen to be significantly related to students' academic performance, even measured by both standardized achievement test scores and the child's classroom academic performance. Now, wait a second. I know you're thinking, no, we just got to keep on remediating. No, we just got to keep on reviewing. No, we just got to keep on covering the content. The research does not validate that perspective. The research tells us that when we develop relationships with students, students' academic achievement increases. Even their standardized test scores will increase when we practice relational teaching. It's the key to academic achievement. And then the last component that I have to emphasize is relational teaching is the key to improving school culture. So every school wants to improve the culture. In fact, if you've ever heard of the National Association of Secondary School Principals, they do breaking ranks training. It is awesome. I've been through their modules. I've been trained in breaking ranks framework. But here's something that they say that I felt was noteworthy. A thorough understanding of where a student is coming from is often difficult to reach, yet a school culture that systematically encourages that understanding will make great strides in helping students learn. If you want to change the culture in your building, connect with kids. See, the collective goal for every school should be, how do we reduce the percentage of students who feel anonymous? How do we reduce and decrease the number of students who feel as if they're invisible? No one notices them. No one welcomes them. No one speaks to them. We have to improve school culture by practicing relational teaching. So in summary, building relationships with students positively impacts student behavior, student motivation, student academic achievement, and overall school culture. All four major concerns in almost every school. And so here's the other component that I've got to emphasize. Not only will we impact student behavior, student motivation, academic achievement, and overall school culture, but I personally believe that when every educator embraces relational teaching, when it becomes the dominant philosophy in the field of education, transformation will begin to take place in schools. And I'm talking about changing the trajectory of students' lives. See, because as an elementary educator, we have to understand that some of our students are carrying more than just a book bag. Some of our students are coming to school every day with invisible baggage. I'm talking about the adverse impact of poverty. I'm talking about adverse childhood experiences. I'm talking about neglect and some traumatic experiences. And how do I know this to be true? Because that was me. I was the student carrying invisible baggage into the elementary setting. Right here, you see a picture of me and my teacher. I happened to be living in a homeless shelter when I was going to kindergarten. Every day, my brother, who is also in this photo with me, we woke up from a cot and we entered into the school as elementary students who were living in a homeless shelter, a congested homeless shelter. And before we were living in the homeless shelter, we were living in a 1987 Ford Fairmont. I have a picture right here. We went from living in a car to living in a congested homeless shelter. But check this out. We went to school every single day, 180 days. My brother and I, he happened to be in the first grade. I happened to be in kindergarten. And we were present in school every day carrying invisible baggage. How did that impact us? How did that impact our desire to learn? How did that impact our socialization? What was our SEL needs being met because we were carrying invisible baggage? Many of the students that you are going to be working with and supporting will be carrying invisible baggage. Some of them may be going through a period of homelessness. Some of them may be going through some family loss. Some of them may be experiencing some child abuse or neglect. How will you support students on the elementary level who are going through that? We got to think about that. And see, this is what I realize now as I look back. You know, if I would have been on the train in elementary, then I probably would not have struggled in middle and high school. And so getting elementary students on the train now may allow them to avoid future struggles. Middle school for me was a blur. I probably didn't have the foundation established. I probably didn't have my social emotional needs met. I was a struggling middle school student and it traveled with me as I entered into high school. By the time I got to high school, I had a 0.75 GPA. I was a failing student. Why? Because I hadn't developed my cognitive capacities. I was not developed in terms of my social emotional development. My needs were not being met by the educational system. The baggage that I was carrying remained zipped up. No one built a relationship with me that was effective enough for me to unzip the invisible baggage that I was carrying to invite my educators in to see what I was dealing with. You got to build relationships with students because if you don't build relationships with your students, you'll never know what invisible baggage they are carrying. And if you don't get them on the train now, if you don't get them to board now, they'll never succeed at the highest level later on in life. We all are familiar with the statistics about how prisons are built, third grade reading levels. So it is crucial for us to connect with students, to practice relational teaching, get them on board the train heading towards success so that we can give them an opportunity for a brighter future. All right. So here's the crazy thing. Somehow I was able to make it into college and I was able to do some things, but it's really because I had 3 relational teaching. Now, I have to be honest with you. None of these educators were my teachers during my elementary experience. Mr. Joby Boone was my 4th grade teacher in G.W. Carver Intermediate. When I got to intermediate school, I had my first African-American male teacher. In fact, my only African-American male teacher. You know, we only represent 2%. So Mr. Boone was firm. He was fair. I mean, he had high expectations for me. He would pull me out of the class on a daily basis and try to inspire me to perform in agreement with the expectations that he set. He would say, Jakari, you gotta come in today and you gotta keep your hands to yourself and you gotta stay in your seat. You gotta stop throwing paper balls and trash in the cans and learn because you are capable. You are a smart young kid and you can do the work. I believe in you. And I would look at Mr. Boone with the most sincere face and say, yes, sir, Mr. Boone. And I would sit in my seat and for 5 minutes, I was the greatest student in the class. But on the 6th minute, I was back to doing my thing and shooting paper balls and being annoying and joking other kids. I had developed these habits that I couldn't break. But Mr. Boone never gave up on me. He attempted to build relationships with me every single day. He saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and he was persistent about connecting with me. Now, he didn't get to see the transformation that I went through, but he did pass me on to another relational teacher, Mrs. Patricia Bookman. Now, I didn't get to meet Miss Patricia Bookman until high school. And Miss Patricia Bookman was the most compassionate educator that I've ever been around. I mean, she was filled with empathy. You could tell that she cared about every student in her class. She made it known to us. And Miss Patricia Bookman, I mean, she built relationships with me. She built rapport with me every single day. She even contacted my mother. She engaged my parent to say, hey, I really love your son. I really would love to take him to the beach one day, to an art exhibit, if you would allow. My mother said, wow, that would be nice. How about Miss Bookman and I went to an art exhibit when I was in the high school? Now, I want to let you know, we were the oddest couple on the ocean front that day. I had the straight back cornrows. I had the white t-shirt and the dark shades and the gold chain and, the gold teeth in my mouth. And Miss Bookman and I were strolling down the ocean front. We were the oddest couple. But guess what? Miss Bookman didn't care, because she cared about me. She also purchased me the most unmanly possession that I've ever owned, abstract butterfly. Now, I never showed my friends this because they would have joked me, but it meant so much to me because Miss Bookman was someone who I knew deeply cared about me. She built relationships with me, and she also inspired me to write. She's the reason that I am a published author today. She told me that I had the capabilities to be a published author one day. So I am grateful for Mr. Boone and Miss Patricia Bookman. But check this out. I needed one other educator. His name was Dr. Joseph Prudhomme. He was my political science professor in college. Now, check this out. He also was a relational teacher. He challenged me. I mean, he was the most rigorous educator I have ever been around. His expectations for me were off the chart. He challenged me academically, intellectually, more than anybody in my entire life. And one day, he also took me out to lunch and he said to me, you are a straight A student. I never forgot those words. He looked me in my face with the most sincere facial expression and said, you are a straight A student. I need you to speak more in class because the rest of the class needs to hear what you have to say. And from that moment on, I looked at him, I said, all right, if you believe I'm a straight A student, my mother used to say that. I had a few teachers who believed in me that thought I was smart. I'm going to give it a shot. And I went on to graduate with a 3.7 GPA, magna cum laude, for my undergrad, and I earned 2 masters, and I'm currently in a PhD program right now. So I've been doing okay academically, but I would not have been able to do this had I not had relational teachers along my journey. So my question to you is, what if every student had relational teachers from kindergarten all the way through high school? What if every child had a teacher who created an atmosphere of love where they felt capable, connected, and cared for in the learning environment every year for 180 days from kindergarten to their senior year? I'm telling you, students would be excelling. Authentic attempts to connect with students will allow them to be transformed. And so I went from this guy in this image on the left to this guy in the image on the right. I had my little medallion for graduating with high distinction. I graduated and I earned my degrees, and then I went on to be an educator. And so what I'm saying is that every student can excel. Every student can achieve at a high level when educators embrace relational teaching and intentionally invest in kids. Transformation will occur. So let's get busy doing the work. I want to give you these 5 practical strategies for applying relational teaching. And then I want you to go out and be great and continue putting in the work that you're doing right now. So number 1, how do I get students on the train? Number 1 strategy, become a student of your students. Invest time in researching and learning about your students. What are their interests? What are their needs? What are their psychological, developmental, social, and emotional needs? What about their generational needs? Certain needs that are specific to their generation. What about their cultural needs, their family needs that are specific to their background? What are their interests and aspirations? What do they want to do in life? What do they enjoy doing in their free time? This is your responsibility as an educator to know. You got to get to know this. This is the SEL pedagogical approach that is rooted in relational teaching. You can't get to know this information until you build rapport. Students will never unzip the invisible baggage that they're carrying and reveal it to you until they trust you. So how do you develop trusting relationships? Number one, become a student of your students. Number two, establish classroom jobs that reinforce positive behavioral interventions and supports. Jobs that reinforce social emotional learning and the 5 C's of citizenship and communication and creative thinking, critical thinking, collaboration. How do you do that? You make sure that you employ students. You empower them right in the setting. It gives them agency. So guess what? I would encourage you to nominate someone as a greeter. And even in the virtual setting, guess what? You can nominate a virtual greeter and ask this student or 2 or 3 students to personally greet everyone as we engage in the learning setting, in the introduction. Nominate someone as a noticer. This person is simply responsible for tallying positive behaviors that they see in class. Maybe the values and the expectations that you have established for the classroom, you want to employ someone to notice those different things. So if you find someone who is helping another student, put a tally by their name. It's quick, it can be done. Also, student supporter, someone who may be more advanced. They can help to tutor students. They may assist other students. Maybe a teacher in training, someone who facilitates conversations, someone who may be the leader in a breakout room in a virtual platform, or a resource manager, someone who's going to help collecting the materials that are being turned in. So that's strategy number 2, establish jobs, employ students, empower them, give them agency and voice. Let them know that they own the space. It's their classroom. It's their learning environment. So let's give them some jobs so that they can own it. Number 3, use entrance tickets and exit tickets intentionally. I mean, your exit tickets and your entrance tickets can be used to engage students in SEL, because a lot of times teachers are saying, well, I don't have time because I got so much content to cover. My curriculum is so broad. I got to get every standard and every skill met. Well, use exit tickets or use entrance tickets to engage students in SEL. You can help them develop their self-awareness. You can help them develop their social awareness with exit tickets or entrance tickets. So it's your responsibility to be creative enough to engage your students on a social and emotional level with exit tickets or entrance tickets. This can be done in 5 minutes or less in every class. Strategy number 4, personalize positive messages. Every child would love to receive a sticky note that says, great job. A sticky note that says, congrats on all that you are doing. A sticky note that says, I believe in you. Thank you for your effort. Listen, the research shows us that students who receive personalized feedback were more satisfied and performed academically better than students who only receive collective feedback. No one wants to hear, great job, class. Yeah, that's good. But students want to hear, great job, Jason. Great job, Latoya. Awesome job, Sarah. They want their name to be called, so it's personalized. See, if you would use these encouraging messages, you will help students develop resilience and grit. It's a little bit incentive to keep their spirits lifted. You know, it's a little incentive to allow them to overcome the invisible baggage that they may have to carry. So personalized positive messages can go a long way. I've always used them. And when I coach teachers, I made sure I coach teachers to use these to help get students on the train. Now, the last strategy is strategic rapport building lessons and activities. Now we're talking about restorative circles, team building activities, project-based learning, jigsaw, cooperative groups, think, pair, share opportunities. These things can be strategically used to build rapport. There's a great strategy that's called What's on Your Plate. Oh my goodness, this is a great strategy. I would love to talk to you more about that, but any get to know you activity, interest surveys, these things can help you get information from your students and allow you to build rapport. And also, I want to encourage you to share your story. I want to make a distinction between relationships and rapport. See, relationships means that The student and you have a relationship, but rapport means that there's a mutual understanding, a mutual benefit in this relationship. So you want to move even deeper into the relationship and establish rapport. Rapport means that you know a lot about the students and the students also know about you. Don't be afraid to share your story with your students. That's how you get them on the train. So I want to conclude with this: reach before you teach. Ongoing attempts to build relationships, hold firm to your high expectations, demonstrate compassion and understanding, and challenge kids intellectually. If you do this, every child will have an opportunity to increase their academic performance. Let's do this work. I want to encourage you to stay connected with me. You can find me on Twitter at Purpose Pushers, or you can find me online on my website at www.purposepushers.com. Hopefully you have enjoyed my session. Enjoy the rest of your day.